The USMCA is now law in the United States of America after President Trump's signing ceremony earlier today, having garnered rare and broad bipartisan support in the end. Welcome now one of the members of the USMCA Republican House Whip team. He's Congressman French Hill of Arkansas. Mr. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here.
You bet, David. Thanks for having me.
So you're not just a congressman. You weren't just in the executive branch, but you also are a businessman, and you were a banker yourself. Give us a little insight into your constituents back in Arkansas. What will this mean for them?
Well, look, Arkansas has over 100,000 people, David, that are employed due to trade with Canada and Mexico. So Canada and Mexico are our most important trading partners. Ending the uncertainty about NAFTA is important. Modernizing NAFTA is important. Opening up the dairy market in Canada is a plus. But I think we'll see Arkansas at the crossroads of continued growth between exports and imports between Canada, Mexico, and the United States.
So when you look at Arkansas, is Canada and Mexico, and maybe one or the other, much more important than, for example, Europe or China and some of the other places we talk about?
It really does dominate. I mean, we see manufactured goods and farm products, foreign products going both ways. A lot of the chicken grown in Arkansas goes to Mexico. A lot of the rice grown in Arkansas goes to Mexico. So both in agriculture and in manufacturing, NAFTA's improvements, now the USMCA, are critical.
So get our hopes up here a little bit, if you would, Congressman. We've got some bipartisanship that got some stuff done, even in an election year.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you could get done this year, you think? I mean, drug pricing, infrastructure, anything else that maybe you could get done?
Well, we're definitely going to work on a new highway bill in 2020. Every 5 years, we do a new highway authorization bill. That's an opening for some infrastructure compromise. I think also you mentioned drug pricing. House Republicans have H.R. 19, which is a way to make drug pricing more competitive. Senator Grassley's worked on ideas in the Senate. So it could be a possibility of a more narrow drug pricing bill that would make prescription drugs more affordable for our families and maybe have improvements for our hometown pharmacies that have really suffered too. So these are areas that could potentially have a surprise positive in 2020.
So Congressman, I mentioned that you're a former banker and you're also on the Financial Services Committee. Give us a sense what's going on with some of the liberalization, some of the rules under Dodd-Frank, because there are various incremental changes I know being made.
Well, last year was a big year. On the 10th anniversary of Dodd-Frank, we were able to modify so many of the rules through Senate Bill 2155, which organized and reduced regulatory burdens that we think were overblown in Dodd-Frank. But we have coming up the regulatory proposal to improve covered funds in Volcker. This is a big issue. Volcker harmonization is something that's important to companies of all sizes. When you have Jay Powell, now chairman of the Fed, but as a Fed governor said, the Volcker rule is so confusing we can't really enforce compliance with it, and it sometimes takes a Ouija board to figure out how to comply with Volcker. So this rulemaking is something the industry is really looking forward to studying, and I do too.
So one of the things we heard about early on with Dodd-Frank, and this was including from some of the regulators who proposed it, said, you know what, we went too far when it came to community banks. There are different situations depending on how big a bank you are. You were a community banker. Has that largely been fixed now? Because I know there was some new legislation.
Right. It is better. The rules are tailoring all the compliance rules, both the CFPB type rules, the Consumer Financial Protection rules, and safety and soundness rules. There was more tailoring in 2155. This helps both community banks and regional banks modernize and affect their costs, lower their costs. So I think it's an improvement after 10 years of Dodd-Frank. But the one big area, David, that we have not satisfactorily dealt with is the secondary mortgage market. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were the principal contributors to the crisis in the mid-2000s that led to the recession in 2008. And I'm hoping that Congress will work hard this year on consensus on how do we modernize and fix the broken secondary mortgage market with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Well, I think you said the magic words, which is consensus. I know the Treasury Department, Secretary Mnuchin, has a proposal out on Fannie and Freddie. At the same time, it feels like almost a third rail. They put that thing into receivership more than 10 years ago. It's supposed to be temporary.
Right.
But nobody wants to touch it because they're afraid it might affect the mortgage market and affect homeowners.
It's important that whatever we do be done in a way that maintains the liquidity in the secondary market, maintains affordability, maintains access for originations to be sold in the securities market. But my concern is that Fannie and Freddie now dominate that market, and the private sector has been fully squeezed out of the secondary mortgage market. That was not the intent of Fannie and Freddie. So I think the reforms that the FHFA ably led now, and the ideas that Secretary Mnuchin has proposed, these all need vetting in Congress. And let's see if we can't find a solution to 10 years of conservatorship, which is no way for us to maintain a healthy and safe mortgage market.
Okay, thank you so much, Congressman. Really appreciate you being with us. That's Congressman French Hill, Republican of Arkansas,
David.
coming to us from Capitol Hill.